Hey YouTube, how's it going? VenomMan20 here tonight, and tonight I'm going to be telling you another story. I've already done a story about my worst snake bite, but this is actually the worst bite that I've ever had the entire time I've been working with animals or reptiles or anything of the sort. So I've always thought for the last 7-8 years, I've been thinking really deeply about doing like a documentary style actual film about this because it's actually pretty interesting. But let's go ahead and get right on into it. So I was hiking looking for rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes are one of my favorite snakes in the world. I gathered this passion since I was about 12 years old. I was actually out in the Sonoran Desert, about 2 hours outside of Phoenix, when I came across my first rattlesnake. And ever since then, I've just been a little obsessed. So I came back home from that trip. In native, we had the timber rattlesnake. So therefore, it was my mission to find a timber rattlesnake. Now let's fast forward. I was probably about 22 or 23 years old. I was at an active den site looking for timber rattlesnakes just to get some cool photographs of, to get some video footage, whatever, that I could get without disturbing the animal. And I was actually hiking down a nice little ravine. I slipped a little bit, slid a little bit, hiked a little bit of the above. And I actually came across a beautiful copperhead. Nice little pit viper, got some good pictures of him inside the roughage. I'm actually got a good picture of like the overall area, so it's kind of hard to see the snake. I'm actually gonna be posting that on my Instagram so you guys can go over and try to find him. But besides all that, got home, everything felt right. I didn't think that anything bad had happened. I cleaned up after being into the woods as you would, and felt great. Well, about 2 weeks later, I know, long time after the bite, huh? About 2 weeks later, my legs started feeling very tingly, and I didn't know what was up. Only thing that I knew is it was really annoying to wear pants. It would just drive me crazy. Like it was painful. It was irritating. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. So it was a little odd. I didn't worry too much about it. I've never really liked wearing pants anywhere. Anyways, I always wear shorts, so who cares, Well, I went on about my daily business, and about a week later, my ankles started hurting really bad. Like the joints it was almost like arthritis, but it was just really painful in both ankles. I found that odd, so I went to the doctor. I'm like, hey, don't know what's going on, but my ankles really hurt. And they're like, well, that's weird. Probably arthritis. I'm like, so you're saying a 22-year-old man has arthritis in both ankles just out of the blue? And they're like, yeah, that's what we're saying. I'm like, don't sound very logical, but whatever. I'm not the doctor. I went ahead and left the doctor's office. At this point, it's getting very hard to stand. My ankles are just killing. Well, in about a week's time, my knees started going. And when I say going, like I would be standing straight up and my knees would just give out. They would buckle. I would fall. This worried me a lot because I'm slowly but surely losing the ability to walk. At this point, I had to make the decision that some of the higher end reptiles, some of the stuff that required a lot of care, that was very hard to handle, I had to get rid of because I could no longer handle them. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I'm going to more and more doctors. They're saying it's arthritis. They're saying all sorts of things. At this point, my legs start getting very vascular. I'm getting a lot of veins bulging out on my legs, and I'm not exactly sure why. I just don't know what's going on. I wasn't working out, so why are all these veins bulging out of my legs? It doesn't make sense. So I went to one of the biggest hospitals around to see what they said. They wasn't sure. They got all the doctors in there. Everybody was looking at me, trying to figure out what was going on, checking my reflexes, checking my nerves. They said, yeah, you have major nerve damage to the lower part of your legs. Like, you're not feeling anything. And I'm like, well, I kind of am. I'm feeling a lot of pain. But no, like skin-wise, I wasn't feeling anything. This goes on. I'm trying to go to work, but it's almost impossible for me to even keep up my average work schedule. I would go in for a couple hours and realized I couldn't stand long enough to complete my job. I'd have to go home. So I was calling in every other day because I couldn't stand up. And it was starting to get to my hips. I could feel it. And I knew it was getting to my hips and my lower back, and I'm getting real nervous now. It was bad enough that I went uptown in my local town and went to the convenience store to get a soda or candy bar or whatever, felt like crap, but I had to eat something. I know, good diet, right? And my mom went up there later that night or whatever, and the lady working there is like, is your son okay? We know he's your son, and he looks like death. Like, he looks really bad. He's pale, he's not moving worth a crap. Mom's like, I don't know, I don't know what's wrong with them. Anyway, after all that, I went to work another day, and a good friend of mine named Travis, if I had to describe him, I would say backwoods hillbilly type. Great guy, big old ZZ Top beard, just a good old boy, Great guy. He's like, have you been checked for Rocky Mountain spotted fever? I'm like, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, what's that? He's like, it's kind of like Lyme disease. You get it from a tick. He's like, I know how often you're outside. And he's like, it kind of sounds like that might be what you have. It can affect the nervous system and everything else. Don't know exactly how it works, but I know it's a thing. I'm like, I haven't been tested for that. So I went back to the doctors. I'm like, hey, I know you think I have arthritis, and you're saying that I'm not in pain even though I can't walk because of the pain. What about Rocky Mountain spotted fever? Could you test me for that? And they're like, yeah, we can test you that, for that and Lyme's disease. So I got tested for both. It came back positive that I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So they gave me the medication, very basic. Within about 2 weeks, I was almost back to normal. And when I say almost, I could stand. My joints wasn't nearly as painful anymore. My skin irritation still persisted. The vascularity on the legs still persisted, but I could walk, and that was a huge plus. But all in all, still to this day, it drives me crazy to wear pants. So a lot of people will see me out in subarctic conditions with snow up to my chest wearing shorts, and they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I can't feel my legs, and what I do feel hurts. Call me crazy, call me whatever, but I dress for comfort, not really for, for show. I'm not really trying to look all that great. I'm just wearing what works. I know it's a little crazy thinking about it that I've handled all these venomous snakes, and the thing that almost killed me, if they wouldn't have found it, it would have killed me, was a tick. Just think about it. A tick almost killed me. The crazy part is I was out looking for the timber rattlesnake, which is a rattlesnake that's persecuted through much of its range. People seem to really be terrified of this snake, although it is very reclusive and doesn't come in contact with people very often. When it does, the snake tends to suffer. But if I would have found the timber rattlesnake, if the bluff that I was on was covered in more timber rattlesnakes, there was actually a study done by the University of Maryland that stated within a summer's time, within the feeding cycle of a timber rattlesnake, an adult male, I do believe the study was conducted on, they can eat anywhere from 2,500 to 4,500 ticks in any given season. So these snakes, of course, will eat the squirrels, will eat the mice, will eat the whatever furry vermin is running around, and they will eat them, and they will also ingest the ticks. Doesn't make the snake sick, but it definitely helps us out. So if the bluff would have been more populated, there's a good chance I would have never contracted this. I wouldn't have the overall long-term side effects of this horrible disease. And I know many people across the United States is infected with the Lyme's disease, and that is a horrible disease as well. Comes with a lot of side effects. A lot of people ask, why do you love snakes so much? Why are you so obsessed with snakes, especially venomous ones? It just doesn't make sense. And I seriously think that I owe my life to snakes. That time I wasn't saved, but how many other times have I been into the woods that if it wasn't for snakes, if it wasn't for the timber rattlesnakes, eating the ticks, maybe I would have contracted Lyme's disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever a long time ago and never found out what it was, and I would have died. So therefore, in my opinion, I owe my life to snakes. If you like snakes, please subscribe to the channel. I will have more snake content out. Normally, we'll have something right here on the table that you can take a look at. I know today you had to suffer through my face. Hopefully, you got to see a little something as to the background that struck your interest instead of just staring at me. But I do appreciate having you. Make sure you show your friends this video, and have a wonderful night.